So we have, I know a couple folks, but Erin with us from Ruby Porter Marketing and Design, which is a full-service digital advertising agency located in Eugene. They have expertise in responsive website and graphic design, custom application development, mobile apps, social media management, email marketing, search engine optimization, which we'll be touching on today, and pay-per-click advertising. So a lot of great experience there. So Erin, why don't you take it away?
Thanks so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up. Cool. I'm the digital marketing manager at Ruby Porter, and I'm going to present today on search engine optimization, SEO. Before I started here, I was in education, so fair warning, this is an interactive presentation. You might want to have your phone with you, and if you have your phone on Zoom, you might want to be prepared to toggle a little bit between a couple of different applications. So we're going to do some polling and it's going to be fun. So I'm going to first start out by sharing my screen here. All right, here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just dive right in and start talking about search engine optimization. Basically, it's essentially making sure that your website is being found when someone does a search related to your business. And the optimization part is making sure that when you appear in those search results, you're close to the top. With the different search engines, really, when we talk about search engine optimization, we're talking about how Google ranks websites. There's an 88% market share that Google has right now over any search done on the internet. Bing comes in like at 5%. So really Google kind of has the monopoly here, and they also like to keep things interesting by changing up their algorithm and the things that they value about a website on the regular. So the job that I have keeps me on my toes, and for anybody else that's hoping to, rank well on Google, it's always sort of a constant guessing game and challenge. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the parts of a search engine results page. And I did this presentation, at least the first part of it, for some students in Cottage Grove at the high school down there. So some of my examples are actually going to be about Cottage Grove. So in your search engine results page, you have what's called the meta title. And the meta title is usually the title of your web page. And then you also have items that follow that are additions that you can actually set in the back end of your website. So if it's WordPress or if it's another one of the drag and drop builders like Squarespace, there should be a spot where you can set what information shows up there as the additional part to your search engine result. And then the larger item below is the meta description. The meta description has information about your business, also something that you can customize. And when I point out the interesting parts of this to students, I say, why do you think that this particular cafe decided to put hydro flasks in their meta description? It doesn't seem like it's necessarily something you would find at a cafe. And they say, well, that's because maybe people that are searching for hydro flasks will stumble upon their cafe. So sort of an interesting piece to say that you can customize what shows up. You want to make sure that there are keywords in there that when searched will bring up your website if it's relevant. There's also a lot of new parts of search that Google constantly rolls out. So sometimes if you're doing a search for a local business, you'll see this type of section on the top of the results page before you actually get to what I showed you in the previous slide. So these are local search results. Oftentimes they're triggered by your geographic location. So you might be in Cottage Grove and you see, searching for a coffee spot, you might see this pop up because it's relevant to where you actually geographically are located. So now you'll see your phone or your web browser pop up and say, can Google use your location? And that's the reason that they're doing that, is so that they can show things that are close to you. We're going to come back to that. So keep that local search result thing in your mind. So why is SEO important? Well, especially in these days, your website is your digital presence. It is your digital storefront. It is how people will find you, even if you don't sell stuff online. So the idea here is that you want to make sure that if somebody is going to the internet to find out information about your business, they can. The other piece of the optimization part is you want to be ranking highly in searches because searchers don't want to scroll and they definitely don't click through to page 2. So if you're not in those top 10 results, the chances of you being found and the chances of you getting, traffic to your website and potential clients contacting you decreases pretty significantly. And then the other piece of this is just that more and more searches are being done by voice. So understanding how Google prioritizes certain things and how voice searching is going to affect the content on your web page is super important for the future. Okay, so this is the first interactive part. So you're going to take your phone and you're going to open up your camera. And you're going to take your camera and point it at the screen where it has the little QR code. And it's going to ask you to open a web page. You're going to open that web page and it's going to be a poll. You don't have to put your name in there. It is an anonymous poll, so just skip the part where it asks you for your name. And you'll go straight to, after you have to close out of a couple of pop-ups, but you'll go straight to this question. What does Google value the most on a website? Links that work, how fast the page loads, useful, abundant content, user friendliness, or none of the above. And I'll give you a few minutes to figure this out. All right, so what does Google value the most on a website? Those of you that chose useful, abundant content, you are correct. Let's see if we can get there. So the answer is content, words, words, words. The idea here is that we need information on the website for Google to crawl, that is to read. And without that information, your website isn't going to rank well. The idea is that you want relevant, useful, high quality information on there. You want to make your site an authority of anything that's related to your industry. So not only the services you provide, but also talking about maybe the history behind those things, maybe the development of your industry, things like that. So you want to include keywords in blogs and metadata, making sure that it's grammatical. In the past, people with this job would sometimes just kind of jam keywords in here and there, but that's not really how it works anymore, and you're actually penalized for that by Google. So it's got to make sense. It's got to be grammatical. Having links so that somebody that's on your site can kind of refer to other pages within that site helps them move through it, and that is indicative of an authoritative site. And then having some external links as well so that other sites are linking to yours because they know you have the right information is also really important. Content isn't just words, it can also be photos, but those photos have to have a certain description and be available for folks that maybe aren't using web browsers in the way that others are, that might be using screen readers or stuff like that. So content is king. I like to say content's queen, but you get the idea. All right, moving on. We're gonna get a little bit technical now, not too deep, sorry Max, but these are some of the other elements of SEO. I didn't want you to think that it's just a matter of being a good writer that, allows your website to flourish. You also have to have all of the elements that were in that poll. So user friendliness, page load speeds have to be optimized, your site has to function well, and it has to be something that Google has indexed and crawled. By indexed, I mean it's something that Google is aware of, and then crawled, it's something that Google can read through so that there are other pages that might come up for certain searches. So within user friendliness, this kind of encompasses clear navigation and making sure that it's accessible to all users. And in addition to that, making sure that it looks good on mobile, because a lot of folks now are using mobile. Probably over half are doing searches on their phone. And now Google is crawling sites using a mobile like crawler to sort of simulate what it's like to use that site on your phone. And if it's not a site that looks good or is usable on a phone now, it's going to pretty significantly be docked out of the top results. So making sure all of those things are in place is important. Page load speeds is also important. So with the different types of website builders, sometimes this is easier or not. You want to make sure that the code is optimized. Sometimes there are plugins that you can use to make sure that things are loading quickly, and then images need to be optimized as well. So those big, beautiful photos that we saw earlier, when you stick them on a website, you got to make sure that they're actually the right size so that folks aren't having to wait several minutes for them to load. And it's actually smaller than you might think. So even photos that you take on your phone could be too large for a website to actually be optimized. And I can get into that if you have more questions afterwards. And then the site functionality, you want to make sure that you're taking a look and making sure all of the links are working well, and that you sort of have proper structure to the website from an HTML perspective. So headline, making sure that the main site titles are H1 coded and then kind of on down in order for Google to understand the hierarchical structure of the information. So I'm going to get in a little bit more with the different tools that you can use to make sure your site is indexed and crawled by Google. The two main ones that I'll talk about are Google Analytics and Google Search Console. Analytics is a tool that allows you to track your website traffic. You install a small piece of code on the back end of the website, and it allows you to see not only data in real time, like who is actually on your website using it right now, but it also records that information and allows you to see over the course of time how folks move through your site, what pages they land on, and what they do when they're there. This has to be tied to a Google account. So if you have a Gmail, that's something that you would use to initiate that Google account and the analytics. And then from there, you would create the property. I have a user guide that I can send to anybody that's interested in kind of how some of this works. It's pretty simple. It simplifies things quite a bit. It's a little bit more complicated, but it'll at least get you started. And then Google Search Console is really where the rubber hits the road in terms of making sure that your site is indexed. As soon as you have a Google Analytics code on your site, then when Google Search Console, when you create the account there, it's able to verify your site through that code, and then you're able to submit your sitemap. So basically the sitemap tells Google what different pages are part of your site, and then it can index and crawl those pages properly. The other cool thing that Search Console does is that you're able to see which search queries are bringing up your website. So you're actually able to understand what people are searching for when they find your website. So again, feel free to send me a message if you want that user guide. I'm happy to forward that to you. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here, doing pretty good on time, and talk a little bit about local SEO. So we talked about search engine optimization in general as it applies to your website. Some of the geographical, constraints of doing web searches will play into general SEO, but it definitely plays into local SEO. So you may have seen this before, especially if you Googled your own website. You'll have a box pop up on the side that is a local search result. So for instance, if I Google Ruby Porter Marketing and Design, this pops up on my screen, and I'm able to see information about where the office is located, what the hours are, information about contacting our office, and sometimes you can also see Google reviews if the profile is being managed, and if the business has been doing well serving its clients. So here is another poll, and I am going to activate it. So basically you can open up that browser, or you can do kind of the whole process again where you scan the code, but now you should be able to see this other question. On the y-axis, I have the use. So If you use Google My Business and you're regularly updating it, you'll be towards the top. If you don't use it, you'll be towards the bottom. And then familiarity is the x-axis. So if you've heard of Google My Business, you'll be to the left, or sorry, to the right. And then if you've never heard of it, don't really know what it is, you'll be to the left. So just kind of getting a sense of, have people had the experience using Google My Business and claiming their profile and keeping that information up to date. So for local SEO, the idea with Google My Business is that it's useful if you maintain it. So you're going to want to claim your Google My Business profile if you haven't. Chances are your business is already listed in the local SEO search results. If you haven't claimed it, then anybody can submit information about if your business is open, if it's not, what the services are that you offer. And so the idea is that you want to claim that profile, make sure Google knows that you're the owner, and then fill in the information that you need to, so that folks that see your business pop up in those local SEO results, there's up-to-date photos, there's information about maybe if you're closed for a particular holiday, things like that. So you want to feed Google the right information and maintain it. But because it's a crowdsourced, the other piece of it is that it's crowdsourced. You also want to make sure that you're getting rid of any, inaccurate hours or phone number or services that might not apply to you. As of right now, there's a lot that Google My Business is trying to do. You may have gotten emails from them that say businesses like yours are posting. That's true to some extent, but it's not used currently as like any kind of social network. So you don't have to feel pressured to post regularly. Just post when you have an update, or they have functionality there for, adjustments that you're making for COVID, things like that. You can also technically create a website through your Google My Business account, but we wouldn't recommend it, especially if you already have one. Having a duplicate wouldn't be a good idea. All right, so all of this is to say that within your digital ecosystem, you really do need to prioritize your website. Social media is important, and a lot of folks reach people that way. But if you aren't referring people back to your website through your social media, then it's not really benefiting you in the most straightforward way. So make sure you're adding links to your social media posts, especially Facebook and LinkedIn. You want to make sure that you have a link to your website and your Instagram profile. And then in terms of just understanding some of what goes into SEO, if your website was built with a drag and drop builder like Squarespace or Weebly or Wix, get to know some of the SEO features offered there. They won't be as extensive as if your website were built in, like for instance, WordPress, but they will be there, and you will be able to set, for instance, your meta titles, your meta descriptions. You'll be able to install Google Analytics, and you'll be able to know how to submit your sitemap. So all of those things are typically included and kind of gets you the basics in terms of SEO. And you can always kind of go up from there. So we do usually recommend WordPress has the most flexibility in terms of making sure that you have all of your T's crossed and your I's dotted. But basically the idea here is that there are certain basics that you can take care of no matter what your website is built in. And then the last piece then is sometimes it really benefits you to do a short-term paid ad campaign. And that's going to increase traffic to your website artificially, because theoretically you're paying for ads that will get your search results to the top of the page. But especially for a brand new website, sometimes you need that extra information to understand what you need to improve about your website and to really kind of get it on the map in terms of an authority for, whatever your industry is. So a quick campaign that's maybe a few months long, 2-3 months, $150 a month can really do a lot for your website, especially if you have some sort of business that is influenced by the seasons and you have, a busy season. Maybe you're a roofer and you know that you really only have the spring and summer to work with. Well, then you best be getting your ads out there in April, May, and June, and getting that information in front of folks. So that's kind of the takeaway message that I would give. And I want your takeaway message. So this is the last poll, and I'll activate it now. You should be able to do what you do now that you've got the hang of it. Third time's the charm. And my question is, what's your one word takeaway from this SEO presentation? I know one word is hard, but if you type a sentence, it's really going to mess up my word cloud. Ooh, love it. Very cool. Well, I'm so glad that content is in the middle there, informative. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your time and attention. And it looks like I am just about at the end. I do want to say that, we're, sort of like Life Slice, we're totally open and available for folks to get in touch with us with questions. If you are looking to hire a professional to take over your digital marketing, we are offering $250 off any service for anyone that has attended a boot camp or refers somebody to us through that. Yay, I know, great. So this could be anything from, doing a site audit for you to managing your social media, taking over SEO, and it's, a long lasting thing. SEO never really goes away once you invest in it.